Chapter 17 of The Blythe Girls. Helen, Margie, and Rose. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 17. Jealousy. There was no mistaking the fact that Margie was in deadly earnest. Rex Pepper gave her one quick glance and slowed the car, swinging over to the side of the road. "What's all the row?" he was asking in an injured tone when a handsome limousine coming from the opposite direction slowed to a stop beside the little car. Rex said something underneath his breath as he recognized the occupants of the big machine, a Mrs. Lane and her daughter Gertrude, both intimate friends of Miss Pepper's. The older woman was very handsome in a stout, florid way, and her daughter was a lovely picture in a soft-hued gray costume. The latter leaned forward, shaking a finger roguishly at the red and embarrassed Rex. "Thought you were dated to play golf with me this morning," she said in a voice that, for all its levity, held a hint of threat. "We will play our foursome this afternoon instead." Rex, his poise regained, raised his hat in an elaborate salute to the young lady. "I am grateful," he replied, grinning, "not only for the favor, but for your forgiveness." Gertrude Lane smiled upon him, gave his companion a sharp look, and the next moment the limousine purred up the road and was soon out of sight. Margie, her cheeks flaming with mortification and wrath, fumbled at the catch of the door, and Rex, humbly enough, opened it for her. She stood at the side of the road, her fists clenched and her eyes blazing. "Who were those people?" she asked in a low tone. "Oh, just a couple of friends of mine and my respected aunt's," he said carelessly. "I'm sorry if they annoyed you." "Annoyed me?" Margie repeated in the same dangerously quiet voice. "It is not that they have annoyed me. Oh, if I could tell you what I think of what you have done today." "Oh, now I say," cried Rex, his face comical in its expression of injured innocence. "You act as if this was all my fault." "Well, isn't it?" Margie flashed at him, and turning, walked swiftly down the road. Rex Pepper was out of the car in a moment and in pursuit. Reaching her, he laid his hand on her arm and, in a curiously humble tone, said: "Please don't go off like that. Won't you tell me where you're going?" Margie shook the hand from her arm and turned and faced him, saying quietly: "I am going to find the nearest train or trolley that will take me back to my employer." "Let me take you back," pleaded Rex, but Margie replied coldly: "No, thank you. I have trusted you enough for one day." She turned again, and her manner was so finally one of dismissal that Rex Pepper stood helplessly in the road and watched her go. He turned then and walked back to the car, hands in pockets, a heavy frown on his face. Margie had not much idea of where she was going or just how she was going to get back to the city, but she remembered having passed a trolley line a short way back, and she made her way toward this. She walked stumblingly, so blinded by humiliation, anger, and anxiety as to what Miss Pepper would think of her that she scarcely saw the road ahead of her. That Rex Pepper had planned the whole thing, had deliberately misrepresented Miss Pepper's orders to her, she did not now doubt. He had wanted her to ride with him on several occasions, and he had probably thought this was an easy way to accomplish his wishes. A caddish thing to do. She fought with the tears that stung her eyes. He had thought it was smart, probably, a good joke, something he could laugh at afterward. How was he, who had never had to want for anything in his life, to understand her side of the question? How appreciate the tremendous importance of her position to her? It would have been bad enough if they had not met Mrs. Lane and her daughter. They had thought, no doubt, and from appearances they had every right to think, that Miss Pepper's secretary had gone riding with her employer's nephew when she should have been busy in her employer's services. The faces of the two women had seemed familiar, and now Margie was able to place them. They had come to Miss Pepper's one day to attend an informal club meeting, and Margie had noted them chiefly because of the exquisite clothes they wore. She, Margie, had been present in order to take stenographic notes of the meeting. Oh yes, they knew who she was well enough, and because Rex had slighted the girl by breaking an engagement with her, she would be swift to retaliate by means of the weapon in hand. Oh, yes, she would tell Miss Pepper of the meeting. Margie found the trolley line and was fortunate enough to catch a car immediately. The conductor proved to be amiable and talkative, and as there happened to be only one other person besides herself in the car, he explained to her at length just how she could reach the city. It seemed complicated to Margie, for she had to change to another trolley line before reaching the Long Island Railroad, and then to the subway after that, but she was grateful nevertheless for the information. That journey was a nightmare to the girl. She had to wait interminable periods for cars and trains, and all the time the vision of an angered Miss Pepper danced before her eyes. She reached the 33rd Street station at last and darted for the subway, once more on familiar ground. Her progress from then on was gratifyingly swift compared to the maddening delays she had met with along the line, and it seemed only a short time before the train drew up to her station. She hurried to the street, but as she approached the palatial home of her employer, her steps lagged. Everything, she told herself, depended on whether Miss Pepper had already heard of her escapade. She used that term because it was undoubtedly the very word Miss Pepper would employ in describing the happenings of the morning. Well, she would go in and brave it out anyway. Perhaps her fears were a good deal worse than the reality would be. She entered the house and was confronted by the superior and impudent maid. Margie had at first wondered why this young person seemed to have taken such a violent dislike to her. Then, one day, she found out the real reason by accidentally overhearing a conversation between this maid and Miss Pepper's chauffeur. Jane had accused the chauffeur of admiration for the new secretary, and the chauffeur had been unwise enough to admit it. Margie gathered that the maid, Jane, was fond of the handsome chauffeur and furiously jealous of herself. She had laughed at the absurdity of the whole thing at the time, for she had felt secure in the good graces of her employer. But now, as she faced the sneering girl, she realized that, innocently enough, she had made a powerful enemy in the household. "Miss Pepper came in," said the girl in a malicious tone of triumph. "And when she found you had gone riding with Mr. Rex, she went out to lunch. She gave me this note for you." Margie took the note in trembling fingers and, with a cool glance at the girl and a murmured "Thank you," turned toward the privacy of the library. There she opened the note and read the one brief phrase it contained. "Report to me tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. Dorcas Pepper." At any other time Margie would have smiled at the sound of that name, for it seemed so exactly to fit her employer. But just now she was not in a smiling mood. 9 o'clock tomorrow, and it was only 1:30. Evidently she had been excused from duty for the rest of that day at least. Tomorrow she might be excused from duty forever, so far as her present employer was concerned. She left the house, discouraged and forlorn, and realizing that some of her fatigue undoubtedly came from lack of nourishment, stopped in a little restaurant and ordered some rolls and tea. Tomorrow morning at 9, and she must wait all that time to know her fate. End of chapter 17.